Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on a great viewer question, and that is to explore why a psychopath will mimic the feelings, behaviors, body language, and expressions of someone whom they are trying to manipulate or influence. Now, someone who is psychopathic, based on their neurology and the way that the centers of their brain, the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, the sensitivity of the dopamine responders, what is felt to be the high presence of testosterone, even in females, creates a different mechanism, outlook, and largely without conscience. And a conscience is something that keeps you under the, within the realm and understanding of what is right or wrong. This is integrity. This is not integrity. This would be hurtful to somebody. This would not be hurtful. This is violating of the law. This is on the right side of the law. Someone who is psychopathic is largely operating without a lot of that guideline. They don't really have much back and forth or banter, but they do know that how they feel about life, their perspective, and that of relationships with people is different from others. They see other people, hugging, kissing, holding hands, doing romantic things. And this is largely based on emotions. Energy in motion, your feelings, the abstracts, things like love, things like loyalty, things like planning for the future, having a vision, wanting companionship. These are all the motivators that most people will enter into a relationship for. They feel that they adore this person. They like how they feel when they're around them. It's exciting, it's fun, it brings out the best of them. And so they want to continue in the relationship. Now, a psychopath does not have that sort of emotional body, if you will. They don't have the emotional motivators. They're not really thinking about love, companionship, loyalty, dreaming for the future. It's just not what really crosses their mind. Although they see that other people engage in this, so they stand back and they observe. They observe the micro expressions in people's face. They look at when people will tap each other on the arm, the hand, hold hands, want to, share a cup of hot chocolate, sharing things like a toast. These sort of behaviors that are largely foreign and not part of a psychological component that crosses the mind of the psychopath. They just have a coldness. They don't have that same emotional content, if you will. And so they don't have that really as a motivator that's fueling them or pumping them up for a relationship. A relationship is meant to be more sort of as a decoy, to fill the space, to appear as if, but largely, because there is something that they want from the relationship. And it's usually something that can assist them, whether it's money, contacts, someone to triangulate with, to offset their boredom, someone that they can play with, tamper with, all sorts of reasons. But the mimicry is what they put together and design after, watching and observing, is a way for them to sort of speak your language. And all of a sudden, what you are looking at then is a mirror or a blueprint of your needs and then the satisfaction of your insecurities. So they can arrive at these conclusions where other people would not even begin to think. It's kind of like, they have just sort of a vision. They are able to study body language and absorb and extrapolate different meanings, what people need based on their body language. Believe it or not, a large degree of our communication is on the subconscious level, which never even meets the eye, doesn't even cross the mind, but is working all the time. So the really unconscious is running the show. And then you've got the body language, which is also responsible for a large percent of communication, and only a very small percent of communication is based on words. It's thought to be maybe like 5%. It's a very low number. Largely, people are communicating with body language as well as from the subconscious. And the psychopath makes no uncertain claim to being able to mirror exactly what you need, what you want, to belay your insecurities and mirror back the perfect individual that you need. And this can be very different based on who they are targeting. And so, you know, the people who are empaths, who have a high degree of empathy, not just empathy, meaning they're able to feel someone else and, you know, see where they're coming from, and where someone might say, I feel you, I get you, and you don't feel so alone, you feel understood. You know, a psychopath does not have those feelings. An empath, though, is largely always feeling other people's feelings. And so empaths can be a real strong target for these individuals because they're not picking up a lot of information that would usually maybe create anxiety or pain or, you know, feeling for this other person and sort of having to fix them up. In other words, the usual walk that an empath or someone with a high degree of empathy exudes or exhibits and then manifests in their relations, the psychopath is really devoid of. So not only does someone with a high degree of empathy or an empath provide like a gold mine for them, because they can sit and really look and see what makes you tick, what makes these types of people tick, and then pick up and then basically take notes and then use this to reflect back to you. You know, no one wants to be around me when I'm sick. And then here comes the psychopath. You know, they're there to understand. They're bringing you the blanket. They're bringing you the tea. They're drawing the bath. No one has ever done this for me before is usually the feeling, and they're so sensitive. When it could be really furthest from the truth. And when we're talking about mimicking, they're using language, they're using rhythm that's meant to make you feel that you are in the presence of yourself, basically comforting, that there is no foreign object. It's all just sort of, you feel just sort of relaxed, understood, you know, lack of anxiety, lack of self-consciousness even. And you know, I am good enough. So a lot of people who are struggling and have been through that in their previous relationships, a psychopath will swoop in and be able to comfort those voids right away, but with no intention of really making a commitment. They'll see that you need a commitment and they will mimic back that degree of commitment even before you speak it yourself. So not that they read minds, but they're able to study people and study human language, and they're able to then sort of feed back to people what they feel that they are needing, communicating, and, you know, and this varies person to person. So it's a way for them, you know, because empathy is a mirror neuron. So empathy is derived from the mirror neurons that we have that are part of our survival as a species, is that of empathy, to have compassion, to feel for another, to get and understand another's story. You know, that's why we have, you know, a lot of narratives. People are drawn in. Yet, you know, a psychopath will mirror this back just to get you to, you know, to open up or provide whatever it is that they need. So it helps other people who are being targeted to feel that they are loved, adored, appreciated, you know, whatever it is that you have felt a need or unsatisfied need of, they're ready to fill the shoes right away. And it's the mimicking that they do that sends a message to you that really is to help sort of balance that which you feel that you are lacking. So they'll communicate that right away as part of the love bombing. You know, you might feel that you are an expert, or you might feel that, you are the manager, and that this is who you want to be reflected as of. And so they'll ask questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? What would you do in this situation? You're the expert. So rather than having a genuine need to ask a question, a genuine need for guidance, really needing the input, the psychopath will derive these questions with an intent to deceive, and it's very deliberate, to mirror back those aspects of you which you feel that you need to be respected or validated. And the other thing is that oftentimes, though, there can be true components deep within the recesses of that individual which are real, valid, authentic, but never really get seen or experienced by the psychopath. And then this is really where the mask starts to crack. Because once you really get to know somebody, you really get to know their legacy, which can't just be observed. Oftentimes there's aspects of the person which are uncommunicated, which are deeply part of themselves and really at the root of who they are as a person. And if this is not brought out, or it's not experienced or validated in life, if that makes any sense, like, I'm from this part of the town, or I'm from this part of the country, or this is my legacy, or this is my ethnicity, this is my culture, things that haven't maybe been brought up, but that really get sort of discussed on more important events, or that should come out or should be shared. Oftentimes that road is never crossed because the psychopath, they seem to be sort of absent of their own past. Meaning oftentimes you won't see a lot of pictures. They will be absent from pictures. It's as if they don't want to be associated. You might just, not see, whole chunks of their life that are just missing or absent. They don't have pictures. They don't talk about it. And I think it's because they just don't remember. It doesn't have a value to them. And so they don't bring it up as part. And so you might feel that there's this void, or there's sort of absence in their presence. And the mimicking, though, is a way for you to become comfortable with them, comfortable in the silence, comfortable in your faux pas, comfortable that and then, but once they have you there, they're able then to, cross and transgress boundaries where you feel trusting, and then trusting enough to miss things. It's kind of like, people then don't see the red flags. They don't see what's going on in the background. A psychopath, I think, will tell you that it's like they're telling you, to think about them all the time. And then meanwhile, you're kind of missing what you need to be doing or what's going on in the background. And so you get sort of deceived and duped. And part of that sort of breaking down and mirroring is like you feel this sort of constancy. And how they break you down, especially in that mimicry, is they want you to think about them all the time. All the time. And sort of on the verge of paranoia, but appreciation. It's a very sort of, really, it becomes a very neurotic blend that they kind of cultivate in those people who they want to manipulate, who they want to affect. And this, thinking about them all the time, I think is one of the hugest red flags. And people oftentimes, they will go above and beyond with this person because it feels like they're just with themselves. You're not really with another person. I think part of the problem, and a psychopath will tell you, that they don't feel these things, and you're not in a relationship. There is no sort of other person. The psychopath is mimicking back to you, mirroring back this pretend individual whom they are not, and who they have no intention, even though they might plan and talk about the future and, being married or whatever, being business partners or whatever it is that are the next steps, they have no intention of fulfilling those. And they have no passion about it, despite that, it's seemingly that they might have a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm, or a lot of energy. What they're doing is getting you to trust and sort of fall for an image of yourself so that really you're really alone, even though you're with them. And so you don't get that back and forth of two individuals. And they'll take advantage of this. They see other people getting very close, to the point where you don't really even become aware of your surroundings. They will do this because they know that that's how they overshadow. That's how they're able to deceive. They're able to reduce your awareness so that you don't notice the red flags or be bothered by the red flags. They might cross your mind and just sort of fly through, but people become so numbed out that they don't take them at concerned value, when most people who are not under their guise of control would say, whoa, that's not tolerable. And then they'll be able to pull back into themselves and then double check things and say, hey, that's no good. And they'll be able to have a strong enough sense of self to know that they don't rely on this person. But with the mimicry, it's almost like this person becomes part of you. And when they're gone, there's this feeling of desire and just craving. I would say more of a craving nature. And for a lot of people, once again, this craving can be a welcome respite from everyday life. And so there's this whole fantasy relationship that is being built and talking about all these wonderful things or that you might do. And, there's these promises. But once again, it's designed to mimic a relationship. And so that's why when people eventually, they see the crack in the mask or the mask drop, they feel very alone because they've only been alone for the whole duration of the relationship. There's another individual there, but not in the emotional sense or the way that they put it, the way that they present it. It can be very, very terrorizing for some people, and they feel that they have gone against themselves, and it's very difficult to come back to their senses. So I talk about resensitizing yourself and, really kind of pulling back within and cultivating and nurturing that warmth back into you, because it gets kind of leached out by these people. And it will be restored. So that is, I guess, the good news. But be very well aware of individuals who you feel that all of a sudden this person is not like anyone else. And just rather than diving in, be a little bit cautious. It's not that you have to be paranoid, and never date or never make relationships again or have relationships to be experienced. But, just realize that most relationships take time to grow and evolve, and that it's a discovery, and it should be a two-way. And it's okay to have misunderstandings. A true relationship can, stand the test of having disagreements, misunderstandings, foils, things of that nature. And it's to be expected. But then there's enough foundation usually that has been built up over time to rely on. And it will feel that you have a sort of an independence in a good functional relationship and respect, and not always based on sort of this craving, this infatuation, this, like you've been starstruck or something of that nature. You've got to be careful and see if that is part of the issue, because that aspect that is developed in the mirroring and that creates that craving can be very dangerous, and it causes people to really seek out and satisfy that craving, and really that's not in their best interest, taking focus off of your true life responsibilities and the people who really love you. Oftentimes when people get to that point, they no longer, are in relationships with normal people. This other person is so deep. They're so wonderful. They're so, all these different expletives that categorize them in this above and beyond pulpit view. When in fact, it leaches energy away from the healthy relationships and make them seem less attractive. So this is kind of a sign that mirroring has then advanced to the craving and the addiction and that sort of, dulled out, fogged out, just sort of salivating at the chops, just sort of being transfixed. You've got to really look at that relationship and say, is it at that level where it's at the form of addiction and it's a craving, and and to identify that is not a desirable state for you to be in, that hyper aroused. It's not going to be there. It's like a castle made of sand. One exposure, one wave, it's just going to wash it away. And you'll be, where's the castle? Where's this relationship? I thought we were on, floor 10. And all of a sudden the thing, it's just a castle made of sand. It becomes an illusion relationship. And that can be very scary because of time, or, how you had allowed yourself to be trusting with an individual who can't be trusted. So be very well aware of some of these components and be willing to be open to relationships that are with quote unquote normal people and that don't get you into, just a mimicry or falsifying a relationship, because really those are the ones that will endure, and those are the ones that'll be there for your true times of need. It's your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Have a beautiful day.